Good evening, everyone. It's March and it's Women's History Month. And welcome back again to the Florida State University College of Law, the Black Alumni Network, affectionately known as BANtv. This is your host, Attorney Marlon Hill, coming to you live here in the state of Florida. I'm in Miami-Dade County, 305 in the bottom of our state. Thank you for tuning in for our monthly conversations with our members in our network and our family across the College of Law Black Alumni Network. We hope that you are getting ready for the spring and the allergies are not bothering you too much. I have a very special guest that is kicking off the end of winter and the beginning of spring. It's so appropriate that I have her here. She's one of our illustrious graduates of the Florida State University College of Law, and she is presently serving as District 8 Miami-Dade County Commissioner, one of 13 in the metropolis of 2.8 million and counting, the largest county in the state. I want to welcome to BANtv the Honorable Danielle Cohen Higgins, District 8 Commissioner. Danielle, Commissioner, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I'm doing so good. I'm so proud and happy to be with you this evening. Marlon, thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking time out. I know that spring break is upon us and you are juggling commissioner, law firm owner, mother, wife, daughter, and everything else in between in this Women's History Month. We're just so happy for you to have this conversation with us. We have a lot to talk about because we know that you have a very tight mommy and commissioner and law firm CEO schedule. So we want to really get in, but we want to thank you for really taking time out, being with us here on BANtv. Before we get into the weeds of what you're doing as County Commissioner in Miami-Dade, we may want to step back into time a little bit and for our viewers and our listeners to kind of get to know who is County Commissioner Danielle Cohen Higgins. If you could give us a short, quick story back into childhood a little bit and a little bit forward.
Man, that's a loaded question. That question would take up all of our time. Because listen, we all have rich stories and rich kind of histories that brought us to wherever we are at this moment. And I always tell people, especially women, to embrace those stories. Don't hide from them. Don't be ashamed from them. Because it's those stories that obviously make us who we are, and hopefully we're proud of that. But listen, my story is one, Marlon, that is very familiar to a lot of people in Miami-Dade County, first generation American. My parents immigrated from Jamaica to this country right before I was born. So I was the first in my family to be born here in the United States, all Miami-Dade County public schools. I was born at our public hospital. I lived in our public housing at the beginning of my life. And so humble beginnings, needless to say. And I say it's a story like many here in Miami-Dade County because we are an immigrant community. We're, a melting pot of so many different cultures. And the story of at least our generation, Marlon, is very similar in that our parents came here looking for the proverbial, American dream. But listen, I was a regular ambitious kid growing up in Miami-Dade County public schools. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. If you ask my mom, she'll tell you that I've been saying I would be a lawyer since I was 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, why would you say that?
Because it was true. I mean, I did. I was that kid that was, always, ambitious, getting good grades, very vocal, advocated for issues, very strong sense of fairness and right and wrong. And so, having no lawyers in my family, my mom wasn't a lawyer, my dad wasn't a lawyer, no one in my family went to college. My mother, my father, and my siblings didn't even graduate from high school. For some reason, for me, it was just, I'm going to be a lawyer, and that's the beginning and the end of it. And so that's what I did. I went through school always knowing that's what I was going to do. Played sports. I was an athlete, all that fun stuff. And thankfully, in 2006, graduated from FSU Law and accomplished that very big goal and dream of becoming a lawyer. And I was sworn into the Florida bar at 24 years old.
What was your first interaction with the concept of being a lawyer?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Like, so what sparked that? What was it? And honestly, I can't point to a specific reference point when I was, very young, like 5, 6, and 7, other than maybe what I saw on television. Literally, because there were no other access points in my life. Because again, no family members, no friends, there weren't any lawyers that were talking about the law growing up. So literally, I think it was just watching television shows, seeing what people were doing and saying, oh, I like that. That looks like something that I want to do, honestly. But
What
as
TV
I got,
show was that?
it might have been Law and Order. I don't know. Like, it could have been anything like that. But as I got older, as a young teenager, I had an aunt that was a paralegal at a very large law firm named Greenberg Traurig. And I went to visit her at her office as a young teenager. I might have been 13 years old. And Marlon, I remember walking in and being completely amazed at what I saw. It looked exactly like what I had seen on the television shows, right? I was like, oh, this is like for real. There are really people who do this, that look like this. And the whole thing for me was such a strong impression, literally that mental impression of visiting that fancy law firm, seeing what looked like very accomplished people, helping clients go through big substantive cases. I was like, that's it. Not only am I going to be a lawyer, but I'm going to be a lawyer, and I'm going to be a Greenberg Traurig lawyer. Like, I was that laser focused. And
Wow.
that's exactly what ended up happening.
So when did that plan start to come together? You're very intentional, and that's a great lesson for other young women who may be thinking about a career in the law. When did the concept of that plan start to really marinate and to kind of really that trajectory?
Yeah, again, I think, I don't know if my story is unique. Maybe, lawyers were kind of cut from a similar cloth, and it's a rather unique one. We all kind of share these similar characteristics. And, again, I was just very ambitious and very focused. There was a question that I was asked in an interview recently, and they said, what would you tell the younger version of yourself if you had the opportunity to send that message?
That's a great question.
I thought it was the first time I had been asked the question. And the immediate thing that came to my mind was I would have told my younger self to chill out, right? Which is, I was intense, I was focused, I was determined. And honestly, Marlon, I think it was because I saw the struggles that my mother endured. I saw the struggles of, not having a higher education, living paycheck to paycheck. And I was just determined to do better for myself, really to make my mom proud. And because I said, these are skill sets that I think that I have that I can turn into the opportunity to help people. So I think I was just wired in a way that I set my mind to something, and then it was, like tunnel vision until I was able to, to reach that end. And I think I've just always been that way.
Well, did you also work in high school and in college as well?
So yeah, so that's a good question. So I started working in the state of Florida, at least at that time. I think it's still true now. The earliest age that you can start working is 14. I was born in August. In August, the summer that I turned 14, I immediately went and applied and got a job and started working, not because I had to, not because my mother was taking my paycheck or to pay bills, but because I wanted to work.
Where was that?
I started working at 14. In Miami, there is a plaza called Sunset Place. At that time, it was just built, and there was a candy store called FAO Schweetz, which was like the candy store connected to what used to be their FAO Schwartz.
Right.
And that was my first job. I bagged candy. I worked at the cashier. I closed the store. I was 14 years old. And honestly, Marlon, I have not stopped working since I was 14 years old, honestly.
Wow. So you went to college too. After high school in Miami, you went off to
University of Florida, undergrad, graduated there in 4 years, and then went on immediately to law school at Florida State University. So I grew up a Hurricane, became a Gator, graduated a Seminole. So, it's a trifecta, as they say.
The Florida State kind of rounded you off.
Here we go.
Polished you.
Right. Florida State is really what really prepared me for the world. Yes, we'll go with that.
What was that journey into law school? Why did you choose Florida State? And what was that experience like at the Florida State Law School? Or what were some of the secrets to your success at Florida State?
Yeah. So honestly, I'm going to be candid. Law school wasn't the best experience. And here's the reason why. And this may be true for a number of people on this chat and those of us that have gone through law school. I went through University of Florida, I was University Scholars. I literally graduated with all A's at the University of Florida and expected the same when I got to FSU Law, because why wouldn't I? It's just what I got my entire life. I went to FSU Law and was like, whoa, this law school thing is like heavy. Like what is going on? Like, what is going on? I'm studying and I'm not getting straight A's, right? So like I struggled those first couple of years, and really was like, what is going on? There were times where I was like, I don't know that this is for me, because I'm accustomed to working hard, trying hard, putting in the work, and really excelling. And law school is a humbling experience in that way, because you're surrounded by people who are exactly that way and competing on that scaled, you all know. So it was difficult for me. Law school was not easy. It was not a breeze. It was difficult for me to win book awards. It was difficult for me to get top of my class. I really put in the work, and it was very, very stressful. But anyway, I graduated. I think.
But what did you learn from that, though? What did you learn from that experience of running into that wall and then climbing it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I would have conversations with my mother, really saying like I don't know that I'm going to graduate. Like this is beyond difficult, and I can do difficult. So I remember times at FSU wondering, like, am I going to get to the end of this? Because I don't know that I'm going to. And I don't know what it was that kind of turned me around, other than my mother, encouraging me. There's not one moment that I can point to that was like, okay, I'm going to stick this out. But honestly, like I said, it was humbling. And for students that are coming up that are accustomed to getting certain grades, I think it really prepares you for the harsh realities of the world and of life, right? I mean, it's true, when we handle our cases, we can prepare until we're blue in the face, and yet we still can't necessarily control the outcome that we believe and feel in our heart and know we should obtain for our client. And that's just the harsh reality of the world. So law school is a humbling experience. I'm so glad that I did it, obviously, but it was not easy for me at all.
Wow. So you finished.
I did.
Right. And then you came back to the harsh realities of coming back to South Florida. Did you think of going elsewhere across the country, or what gravitated you back to Miami?
So interestingly enough, I graduated. I was sworn in at 24. I was a baby lawyer. I got, the summer associate program at Greenberg Traurig. There were a number of other offers, but I accepted with them. So right out of law school, I started with Greenberg Traurig, but in their Tallahassee office. I worked in their Tallahassee office under Barry Richard, who's still a wonderful trial lawyer there now. His wife, Allison Tan, is a state representative. But that's where I learned how to be a litigator and a trial lawyer. And it was amazing because Barry Richard handles, he handled Bush versus Gore. I mean, he handles these monster, like Anheuser-Busch litigation cases. We would go on 6-week trials where I slept on the floor in a war room. Anyway, that's a long answer to the question. I started my legal career in Tallahassee, Florida, and for all intents and purposes was going to stay there. But at 24, I got homesick. I was like, I need to go back to Miami for a little bit. My friends were kind of living it up and having a great time. And so I transferred from the Tallahassee office of Greenberg Traurig to the Miami office. And obviously, I've been in Miami ever since.
Well, and then when did you plant the seed on starting your own firm and taking the turn there? And what precipitated that? Was it this intentional Danielle, again, driven, ambitious, independent? Were those the core values that took you to starting your own firm as well?
Yeah. So all of that. And then I think a little bit of crazy, right? Because anybody can leave, right? I mean, honestly, I joke about that. I say I left Greenberg Traurig to start my own law firm, either out of courageousness or craziness. And honestly, it was probably a little bit of both. At that time, I was still very young. I started my law firm in 2009. So I was at Greenberg Traurig for just over 3.5 years. The Miami office was very different than Tallahassee, right? Tallahassee was small. It was like a family environment. Miami, it's hundreds of lawyers. It's like it's like big city, really, really cutthroat, totally, totally different environment. And I said to myself one day, I'm either going to hang a shingle and figure out a way to make money with my own license on my own terms, or I'm not practicing law anymore. Like for me, it had gotten to that, that turning point. And mind you, I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. I was single. So I had, the luxury of taking that huge risk. And thankfully I did, because I've had my practice now from 2009 to 2023. and haven't looked back since. And that's a big decision. And anybody that's making those kind of steps and making those decisions, obviously everybody's personal situation is going to be very different.
Right.
But I was able to do it when I was younger and didn't have a ton of financial tentacles attached to that Greenberg-Traurig salary. So at that time, it was the right move to make.
Well, Danielle, you're definitely more wiser now. And we're fast forwarding 2020, now just been reelected, elected, I would say, for your first term after being appointed previously to the county commission. But before I get to you being a county commissioner, what seed was planted or what issue that triggered you woke up one morning and said, I want to leave from the county commission, and here's why?
Yeah. So the catalyst for me running for office, and, mind you, I think I said earlier, I had always wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was a kid. That wasn't true about politics. I was not the kid saying, I want to be a congresswoman or a senator. I didn't even know what that was, to be honest with you. Like, there was nothing in my brain as it pertains to politics. Even in law school and even as a lawyer, I didn't, that was not in my path. It wasn't in my plan. It was not something I aspired to do at all. And then a certain president was elected, Marlon. Then a certain president was elected that grabbed my attention in a lot of different ways. And the way that my attention was grabbed were just things that to my core were just entirely unacceptable. And I said to myself, okay, I sit on this board. I sat on all these different boards as a lawyer. I gave back to my community the way that I knew how and the way the law firm had introduced me to, sitting on boards, raising money, charities, all of that other stuff. And I said, listen, if I care about this, if I'm so deeply bothered by what I'm seeing representing our country, reference to women that I found extremely offensive, I said that I wanted to shift and lend my voice to political causes. And instead of representing clients, representing my community, I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't have a touch point. My husband is not in politics. My parents are not in politics. It was a completely, it was an idea that really spawned from seeing things that were troublesome to me, and then me embarking on a journey, having no idea where it was going to lead me. That started a political door, started the political world opening up to me. And again, it was intentional. And I'll tell you, it wasn't as though I started saying, oh, I'm going to be the next county commissioner. I just wanted to get into politics because I felt like politics needed more women's voices, quite frankly. And I did a lot of exploration, took as many meetings as people would give to me to kind of learn and do due diligence as we do as attorneys, kind of dig in and find out what this world is all about. And then the county commission opportunity ended up opening up to me as an opportunity through that exploration period. And that's when the pivot turned directly towards running for the county commission seat. Was
it the mood, Danielle, of the country or the direction of our core values? What was it you think that triggered, you want to definitely play a role in not moving in that direction?
I'm going to be honest. Listen, there are certain moments in our life that we remember that we never forget. And everybody has their own list of what those moments are. 9/11, I'll never forget where I was. Certain tragedies in my family, I'll never forget where I was. Obviously, the wonderful birth of my children, my marriage, those are obviously very positive memories. But I remember this particular president getting sworn in and just being extremely moved by it in a negative way. And I'm not easily moved, right? I was very, very upset and was very concerned about where our country was headed, what the country would look like for my children, etc. And so, I can point to specific remarks that were made that I felt were just wildly inappropriate for a commander in chief. But quite frankly, the list was very, very long. And honestly, Marlon, I've only been in this for a couple of years now, but I meet women after women after women, particularly women of color, that share a similar story, that were sparked by that time in our country and said, I'm not sitting on the sidelines. Like, happy to serve on this board, but I'm going to get involved politically as well, because clearly this arena needs more voices representative of women and people that look like me.
Well, Danielle, you were appointed, like I said, and last year you got your first term, first of first of two terms, if you choose, of 4 years. You're now one of 13 county commissioners. You were a citizen prior, and now you're a county commissioner. What have you learned about leading from the commission days that you didn't know that you know now, as you are actually flying on this plane of leadership?
Yeah, I mean, what have I learned? Honestly, I've learned everything. The learning curve in this world of politics is so incredibly steep. And again, for me, it was very steep because I didn't come, I wasn't an aide politically. I wasn't a chief of staff. I didn't work at the county. I didn't work in Tallahassee at the Capitol. So for me, the learning curve was very steep because everything was new. And I'm learning every day, which is part of the job that I love. That's what I love. Part of what I loved about being a lawyer and a litigator, new cases, new problems. We learn all the time. The same is true in politics. But what I find, quite surprising, in addition to the substance, all of the laws that we have to learn, the policies, the procedures, the politics that we have to learn, is truly how, this is not an understatement for anybody that's interested in getting involved in politics, irrespective of what side of the aisle you may be on, is the importance of relationships in this world. I mean, it is probably arguably second to your own integrity and your own, character as a human being. Relationships are probably the second most valuable commodity that you carry in the world of politics, which I find to be quite shocking. You could know an issue up and down, left and right. You can be an expert on an issue, but if you can't garner the support of your colleagues to get the number of votes that you need to carry an issue across the finish line, your issue is not going anywhere, right? Again, you can be an expert on a topic, know everything inside and out, and do all the reading in the world and come back and be an expert. And try to carry, if your colleagues don't like you or don't support you, then your issue is likely not going to see the light of day. So those relationships in politics play a very, very, very big role. And that was something new that I did not realize prior.
Living in a multicultural, dynamic community like ours, these relationships are very complex. What's your formula for at least giving you a foundation to navigate these relationships in a productive, meaningful way?
Yes. So first of all, I'm going to tell you, you have a career in hosting because your questions are very good, and I think that you're very, very good at this. I think, again, you're asking an excellent question, and it's important for whoever's watching to know that I serve as a Miami-Dade County Commissioner in a nonpartisan role, which means my community elected me to not talk about Democrat and Republican issues for the most part, right? We're dealing with water, sewer, roadways, infrastructure, parks, transportation. And so I stay true to that because that's what the people elected me to do. And on our dais, we are pretty much split in the middle as far as Republicans and Democrats, and everybody knows who is a Republican and who is a Democrat. But I truly pride myself in getting to know all of my colleagues, and even if they're not sitting with me on the dais, all elected officials in Miami-Dade County, and getting to know them for who they are on a personal level and respecting their beliefs, even though they may not be identical to my beliefs. And so I'm very comfortable meeting people exactly where they are, listening to them, even if I don't agree with them. And unfortunately, we're in a political environment where that is not, that kind of collegiality is not promoted. It's rarely seen. And if it is seen, it's unfortunately frowned upon. I can say in Miami-Dade County, we operate differently, and I hope that stays true for the Miami-Dade County Commission into the foreseeable future, and I think it will.
Danielle, I quite a bit of work in government, and I'm highly impressed by how you approach your county commission meetings, because it's like a trial lawyer, not like a trial lawyer. How intentional is that? What is your process? I am sure there are lessons to be learned if there were a master class of preparing for a county commission meeting and participating in a county commission. How do you do that? What's your secret hot sauce?
Yeah, so I think the secret hot sauce, Marlon, is honestly just putting in the work and reading these agendas, right? They are arduous and they are burdensome. One item can be 175 pages, and we'll have upwards of, 50, 60, 100 items on one agenda for one meeting. So, who's going to take the time to read through all that stuff? I do. I do. Right. I mean, I read the agendas. So it's interesting because the public will ask us often, how come you went through such a lengthy agenda so quickly. We're barred by sunshine, meaning there's a law in the state of Florida that says in Miami-Dade County that we cannot speak to our colleagues outside of the sunshine. We have to place a public notice, and if there's any issue that we're going to vote on, we have to do it in the public eye where the public can chime in. That's not true with the administration. The administration and the commissioners are not barred by sunshine. So we, at least my office, will spend a lot of time combing through the agendas with the administration, with the different departments, asking the questions off of the dais and off of the microphone. So we're not spending time on the microphone and in the public eye educating ourselves on the basics of the agenda. What I do on the microphone tends to be to get at issues that I find troubling or problematic in some way, or I think just needs attention from the public's perspective. So we're very, very strategic in the items that we speak on. We're very, very strategic in the items that we attack. And we actually don't speak very often, quite intentionally, Marlon, because it's easy to get your voice watered down when you're one of 13 and you have meetings so frequently. So we really try to be very, very strategic on the items that we go after.
And I really love the recap videos that you do as well. They're very informative to the citizens, which is also part of the process. So we are winding down, Danielle. So I'm going to have some quick fire questions here. What advice do you have for any young woman, young girl thinking about a career in the law or even a career in politics?
We need you. That's my advice. We need you. And the road is bumpy and it's uncomfortable and it's long and it's challenging. There will be tears, but there will be more smiles than there will be tears. I find this work to be very rewarding. There's no better feeling than having a client give you a hug or call you and say thank you when you've successfully managed a case for them. It is equally fulfilling when you have residents, constituents calling you and sending you messages saying, thank you, you helped me, you helped our family, thank you for passing this law, this helped. I mean, that to me is unbelievably fulfilling. And so, yeah, there's the noise and there's the chatter and there's the social media and there's the, misinformation, all this noise that happens. And then obviously there's the difficult road to getting to law school and getting through law school. And that was very challenging for me as well. But listen, I find it to be very rewarding, honorable work that truly can make a difference in this world, in your community. And so, I think it's entirely worth it. I think it's entirely worth it.
Well, I read those agendas as well. And I know that it's a full-time job, but how do you balance it all? Being a lawyer, being a mom, owning your own firm, being a wife, being a daughter. How do you balance it all? What does Danielle do?
Yeah, so right now you're speaking to Danielle Cohen Higgins 2.0. This is the clone of Danielle Cohen Higgins. The real Danielle Cohen Higgins is at another event. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm kidding. No, if only we could clone ourselves. If only there was more than 24 hours in a day. There's not. Listen, I'm not a baby lawyer anymore. I may be a baby in the world of politics because I'm new, but, I've been around the block a couple of times. And this is especially true for women. Don't be afraid to say no, right? I mean, be very comfortable and confident in saying no and prioritize your time in a way that works for you and for your family. Because, people, issues, agendas will always pull at you, even as a lawyer, absent the world of politics. And you can get sucked away from what your priorities are very, very easily if you're not extremely intentional about staying focused on what's important to you. And for me, my family comes first. I do drop off every morning. I do pick up every afternoon. I don't miss games. I don't miss swim classes. My schedule genuinely is built around those tiny humans and their needs and their world. And so I say no sometimes to things that, I can't be at because I got to go be with my kids. And I'm very comfortable saying that. It doesn't mean that I'm any less involved. In fact, if you follow us on social media, you see that we're everywhere all the time. But I do carve out a lot of time for my family, and that's important to me. So my advice as far as getting it all done and how do you get it, how do you do it all, is to not be afraid or in any way shy or bashful about saying no. Thank you so much, but I have to be over here with my family.
Before we go, one final question. What is Danielle doing for fun, for self-care, and for her?
That's funny. That's a good question. I don't know. I'm going to have to get back to you on that because when I do find time for self-care, I will let you know. No, I started exercising again and I hadn't exercised in a long time. So I'm starting to get back in the routine and that feels nice. And obviously it's difficult to kind of keep a schedule. But I think it's important as women that we continue to take care of ourselves, feel good so that we can help others do the millions of things that we help others do. But I don't have any hobbies. I wish I did. I wish I had a hobby, but I don't. But I'm going to take one up and get back to you. Next time we talk, I'm going to report in with my newfound hobby.
Listen, it's a
Yeah.
great pleasure and our honor to have you here on BANtv and to be one of our illustrious Black Alumni Network graduates since 2006. Started Cohen Law 2009, elected to the Miami-Dade County Commissioner, District 8 in 2020. Please reach out to her, District 8 at miamidade.gov. We hope that you have a real enjoyable spring break and an even more enjoyable Easter break as well. Look forward to connecting with you again. Thank you for joining us here on BANtv. All the best to you and the family and the staff. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Marlon. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody that was listening and watching. Be safe.
Thank you so much, everyone. Until next week, we're here Women's History Month here at the Florida State University College of Law Black Alumni Network, BANtv. Thank you for joining us and tuning in. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Drop a comment, send us a note. Who would you like to hear from next? Have an enjoyable spring break. Look forward to talking to you again for the rest of Women's History Month. Have a great evening.